Live from historic Lamert Park in Los Angeles, California. I'm Tavis Smiley, and I'm so glad to see you and me. Back in stride again. Before we get started with today's show, let me invite you to follow me on Facebook and Instagram at The Real Tavis Smiley and get updates on X, that's formerly Twitter, at Tavis Smiley. By the way, should you miss any part of today's program or want to catch up on previous shows, you can always visit thetavissmileyshow.com. That's thetavissmileyshow.com or wherever you get your podcast and listen to the Tavis Smiley podcast version of this live program at your leisure. Another great show on tap for you today, including a conversation with Newark Mayor and New Jersey gubernatorial candidate Ras Baraka on his recent arrest by ICE agents and his subsequent court appearance. But today is a very special day, and so we commence with this.
The only way a man can be respected and regarded as a human being is if he can stand on his feet like a man, and in order to stand on his feet like a man, he has to have everything that is a man's right by birth. You can't make me a man. As long as these black people have to sit around here and wait for the government to legalize and make them men, they'll still be boys. You become a man by doing a man's job and by doing for yourself what men do for themselves. And the Negro has approached this whole thing as a boy, waiting for his master or the great white father to drop crumbs from the table. And the sooner whites realize that there are black people in this country who have grown up and that they're not represented by King or any of the others who talk this turn the other cheek for this and that philosophy, then the white man will take whatever steps or measures necessary to bring about a solution to this problem before it blows him off the planet. I should say, causes him to cease.
Today is the 100th natal day of El Hajj Malik El Shabazz, the brother minister, Malcolm X, for a conversation in this hour about her father's legacy and the continuing relevance of his message. I'm pleased to welcome to this program the eldest daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz, Ambassador Attallah Shabazz. Ambassador, how are you today?
I am well, and thank you for including my mother.
Always. I've been blessed throughout the course of my career to take photos with a lot of people who I admire and respect. And one of my favorite photos sits in my office. It is a photo of me standing between your mother and Coretta Scott King. And I treasure that photo more than you can imagine between your mother and Mrs. King. It's just an amazing, it's a great photo, but it's an amazing moment for me as a young man to be standing between these two sheroes. And so always we include your mother in this conversation. Let me just start by saying, first of all, thank you for your time on this day. I can only imagine that this season is very special for you, and I dare not try to describe what your emotions are, but I know how it's hitting me, that we are now celebrating the 100th birthday of your precious father. So let me just start this conversation by giving you an opportunity to tell me how you are processing this day.
You know, I live a life processing, so these aren't single moments for me. It really is year-round, 365 days, all day, because my father was a part of my life. He was a defining part of my life. He was an affirming part of my life. And so whether people are watching or not, whether it's Black History or not, whether it's his birthday or Memorial Day or not, I am shaped by my four parents, meaning my great-grandparents, grandparents, and my parents. And I was blessed to live at a time where the social architecture of who we are, along with the bridge of our diasporic wealth, was so defining. And I had two parents. I still think of myself as a person with two parents, although I know that for my younger sisters, they were raised by one. I'm shaped by the two. So today, his birthday, the period, was something I anticipated long before it becomes an event for some, an opportunity for some, but it's ongoing for me in many amazing and wonderful, inspiring ways that enables me to know why, as I am, much older than he or my mother got to live. to carry those bones and to make sure I breathe life into that.
Yeah. When you said earlier that your father is an affirming part of your life, unpack that for me.
Well, I mean, having him, I didn't realize that people didn't always have great relationships with their mother or father. I had an affirming one where my African self, my girl self, my person self, my unique self, my quirky self, he was a non-judgmental, non-critical parent. He was an unconditional listener and pal. So for me, I walked in the world as different as I was in retrospect and as I got to learn, already affirmed. So peer pressure did not, it can isolate you, it can make you feel a little, uninvited to the party, but it was really all right because I already had my stuff, I had my tools. And so affirming in that, even said to my mother, well, she's me. Affirming in that when I would spend time with my uncle or my grandmother, his mother, and others, I would feel myself in the uniqueness. I don't mean in the ways others laud him, right? But I mean just when you want to know the nuance of your DNA, of your nature, of your being, the way you think, how you move.
Yeah.
So affirming in that way, watching him love my mother out loud, up front, watching him, scoop up a sibling, a sister, he was just an affirming person. So when people take a speech or a line or presume him, I really got to experience it in real time.
Yeah. I've got a minute and a half or 2 minutes here now. We'll continue, of course, when we come forward. But let me just ask you to unpack again for me right quick. What you meant when you say the way others laud him. Was that an indictment that I heard?
No. The way when he inspired him, laud, L-A-U-D.
Yeah.
When you admire someone from the outside in, right? So that means you have a few words, a headline, an experience, or whatever, but you don't know him.
Yes.
So sometimes we laud beyond the ability to give people their whole human circumference.
No, I get
right?
it.
Just because we admire them in the context of what we celebrate. So I said that wasn't an indictment. That was really the encouragement that others have, but without them realizing the pieces they're missing and recognizing him.
I received that. When we come forward, I want to pick up on this notion that Ambassador Shabazz raises a moment ago, that for some, this 100th birthday, this 100th natal day of Minister Malcolm X is an event. That's her word. It's an opportunity for some. I want to unpack that and a great deal more to cover with her when we come forward on the 100th birthday of Malcolm X with his eldest daughter, Ambassador Attallah Shabazz, on Tavis Smiley. I'm Tavis Smiley. We are celebrating the 100th natal day of the brother minister Malcolm X, and I'm honored to have in this hour his eldest daughter, Ambassador Attallah Shabazz. I thank her for her time on this day. I know there are many others who are asking for this opportunity to speak with her on this sacred day, but I'm delighted and humbled that she responded to my call. And I welcome her to this program. Moments ago, you used two words I want you to unpack for me. You said that for some, this day is an event. For others, it is an opportunity. Broadly speaking, how do you read that?
Well, it's because people would say, are you going to the event? There's the occasion. Those are the emails I would get. I said, well, there was no one event because the things are happening in different parts of the globe. Some asked for permission and some didn't. Some use it as an opportunity to celebrate based on what their experience is, and then others, whatever. So that's what I meant by that there are things going on all day long right now, somewhere or the other. And I get to hear what some of the narratives, and you want to say, if you only ask me, I'm not going to rain on your parade. If you only ask me, my grandmother's not a myth, so you don't have to guess. I can fill you in because I actually had my grandmother into my 30s. She's like a real person that functioned maternally with us, right? It's not just a footnote and or who my father was on the journey. He's not singular. That my father is the name you got to know, the person you got to know, but all of those siblings were really something else. All of those grandchildren are really something else. I mean, there's a gene that we recognize that some of us older first cousins go, uh-oh. because we see characteristics. I would love to be able to share the authentic journey of a human being and not just the headline.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. We started this conversation, I started by mentioning you being the eldest daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz, and you thanked
Yes.
me for referencing your mother.
Yes.
Say a word about your mother. There's no real question there, but just talk about your precious mother.
Well, so I laugh because my mother was a full person. I mean, a full-bodied person. I mean, when I entered, when she entered my life, when I entered her life, she was on a journey. I entered my parents' lives with them being young parents.
Mm-hmm.
And they courted for 2 years and married on January 14th, and I was born November 16th. They came from two different social or historic ideologies, both the children of presidents, of renowned historic figures. My father, people know his father was the president of the Universal Negro Improvement Association, the Marcus Garvey chapters wherever he lived, and was killed as a result of that stewardship. And then my grandmother, my grandfather on my mother's side was the president of the Booker T. Washington Tradesmen Association. So these were two young people, my father being older than my mother, who were rooted in principle and intention and focus. And they found each other. Ideologies that their respective parents may not have thought would have been the mate, but the foundational or fundamental principle of our inherent right to all things that they were known for advocating. And so my mother is that girl. She was the only child in that relationship. She, from Detroit, and had vision and intention, and raised us to be so aware of who we are. I mean, my mother, when she met my father, was already a registered nurse and decided to ground the home in order to support his vision and mission. And this is independent of the nation, right? So there's the nation which people associate him to, and then it's his parent's son, meaning that work had already been in motion. Because I wasn't raised in the nation, so that would be the single narrative people have. And, I was born in the 50s also, but the nation was not part of my ideological rearing. Right? So that's not anti. That's just that didn't meet the domestic side of the house.
Sure.
Right?
Yep.
So most people don't know that. And so my mother and my father found a hybrid per their respective parental teachings and ideologies that really I'm still the beneficiary of their attentiveness.
Yeah. I love that word, attentiveness. How would you define and describe your father's attentiveness, given all that he was doing during your childhood? How did he find time to be attentive to you?
I don't know. Bless him.
Yeah.
Every time a modern parent starts whining and fussing, I'm thinking, my mother and father, respectively, collectively, together initially, and then, of course, my mother as a single parent, no balls were dropped. And so when we talk about the quality of time, so it's only when I was probably in my 20s and I was looking at my dad's international schedule, not the local ones, because I traveled with him a lot locally, in the U.S., rather, but when he was abroad. And there would be breadths of time where he was really gone for quite a while. And I think that must have been hard on my mother. But for me, my father would do these treasure chests. So he would call in, speak to my mother first. I'd get on the phone, and he'd say, "Which way are you facing? Turn around, jump 3 times, hop." Look at it. He would have these little riddles. So he was always connected.
Yeah.
And you'd find these, which meant he had to give that thought before he left, right? And then also we had on our living room wall a world map, which I actually have, in most places I go to, offices or whatever, a kind of global map. And anytime a sibling would get daddy sick and miss him, we'd point on the wall on the map where in the world daddy is and what language is spoken there and who's the president or prime minister there. And in my childhood, those presidents and prime ministers were brand new because the OAU was new.
Yeah.
right? So there's those kinds of journeys that I wish people knew more about. It was less political. It was more foundational.
Yeah.
And what does Pan-Africanism really mean from the African continental genesis juxtaposed to ours in the U.S.?
Yeah. Talk to me about traveling with your father. I am excited to hear, anxious to hear that anecdote about traveling with your dad.
Well, it depends. So if it was local, because he would pick me up from school, and then we would drive, and this is in Queens, pick me up from school, and we'd drive over to Harlem, where he might be either doing a class at one of the temples or in a meeting or a powwow with John Henry Clark or Oscar Michaud, at the bookstore, or, a meeting with Percy Sutton. So I was with him from 3 to 7, let's say,
Yeah.
On an average basis. And it was interesting because on the ride back to Queens, where we lived, he could pick up on what we needed to talk about on the way home. Somehow he would just zero right. I don't know if it's how it triggered, what my reaction, I don't know. Because I was always in the room doing homework or something, doing my thing. Mm-hmm. And that would be our time to chat and talk. And him, I probably, explore the litmus of my understanding of things. But I never had an anti. There was never like a unanimous enemy or fear vested in me, right? There was never you don't belong or people don't like. I just never got any of that. There was such a dynamic understanding of my being intentional, being wonderful, and with humility. So this is not ego. This is just inherent right? Mm-hmm. So even when I'm engaging people now, whether it's life coaching, whether it's loving a sibling and not making it comparative to another sibling, and so on and so on, it's just, who are you? What are you? What does your marrow cry out for? And what do we do to make sure that answer is given? Yeah. That's how I was raised.
No, you used a word a moment ago that I want to come back to. I love how this is going. I'm just following you. You keep setting me up, and I'm appreciative for the way you keep setting me up. So you used the word fear a moment ago, and as long as you and I have known each other, and many times we've talked, I've never asked you this question: did you ever, as the eldest daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz, in that house, as you traveled with your dad, in any space, did you ever feel fearful?
The only time I could identify with the ominousness, the foreboding, was the actual day that he was assassinated.
Wow.
So certainly lots of things happened before that. It was like a 2-year chase, right? Where we were being surveilled and watched, and people that looked like us were doing their part who were once around us. But it was that day, something in the rhythm. So I am an intuitive kind of person, and something in the rhythm had shifted and something conveyed to me. So but I didn't have the words. I didn't know what finality meant. I didn't know what that kind of conclusion meant. And my father nor mother gave us the feeling of a boogeyman, right? In any of their protective times, that image that that people see with the rifle is an empty rifle. But somebody tossed it to him. So people think that was how we lived. Not at all. But someone had, right outside he's looking out of a window, and I was in that living room when something brushed up against the window. And so that was taken in an instant, but it wasn't a defining part of our house. Yeah. Yet people use it on a regular basis. So that day, and it concluded as such, and I got to the stage, and I could see him see me see him. So that means more the older I get, knowing that my knight in shining armor knew what was happening to him and that I saw it. Not just from the audience. I was on the stage.
Yeah. When you see something like that, it is impossible, obviously, to unsee it. How
Yes.
have you navigated all these years with that frame in
Well, I
mind?
tell people because it's not. I have many frames. I'm blessed,
Yeah.
right? I have many frames, and many frames that penetrate the intellect, the heart, the foresight. I'm embraced by the many frames, along with that truth. Up to that point, I knew the who, the what, and the where. I was a witness. So unlike others who hear tell about such assassinations that happen in public events, I can't be gained by it. I can't. So there's no speculation for me. The truth is one of the freedoms that I have because I was also that kid in the room after that day. So I knew what the conversations were, and the truths of them and how they were handled. I've also had off-record conversations with people around it that I keep for myself. But I think the truth is one of the things that enables me to address that. It does not erase the ache, the loss, the brutality, the intention, meaning he wasn't hit by a car accidentally. This is a premeditated act so that there are people who are made to do that. That is one of those things. Do I have some degree of PTSD? Probably, but not just about that day. It's knowing that in and around you, spirits and natures of people will change. And so I'm just really kind of a 3D sister. You know, I'm really aware of the nuances and characterizations. Most don't hear from me because I probably did the first 20 years public. And we've lost a lot of people since, and that has impacted me.
Yeah.
People who are architects of the period and the time. So what I do now is I just do the work.
Yeah.
You know, I just spend my time. I'm not at any events today. Believe it or not, I wasn't even invited to anything, which I find to be, you can't know Malcolm or Betty and not take care of his children. So that's been something I've experienced anyway over the decades.
Well, she was invited. She was invited to this program. I'm glad she accepted. What a
Well,
blessing!
because you've always done that.
Yeah.
And like you and I have discussed, I've watched you since you were 22. I've watched your journey of truth and navigation and restoration. I've watched that. So it's easy for me. I don't need laws and skint knees.
Yeah.
I come from a father who really gave us permission to say, I've been there, I've done that, I saw that. Yeah. And here I am today. New choice every day. We get to make a new choice, a new decision every day. And that is what the journey of life is. It's stagnancy that's a question. Yeah. It's when you don't glean or discern. It's when principle takes a back seat. I don't know what to do with all that. And I let you have it. I don't even have a critique about it. I just know for me, I protect myself from it.
More of our conversation with this 3D sister, Ambassador Attallah Shabazz, when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
We feel that the problem of the black man in America is beyond America's ability to solve. It's a human problem, not an American problem or a Negro problem. And as a human problem or a world problem, we feel that it should be taken out of the jurisdiction of the United States government and the United States courts and taken into the United Nations in the same manner that the problems of the black man in South Africa, Angola, and other parts of the world, and even the way they're trying to bring the problems of the Jews in Russia into the United Nations because of violation of human rights. We believe that our problem is one not of violation of civil rights, but a violation of human rights. Not only are we denied the right to be a citizen in the United States, we're denied the right to be a human being.
I'm Tavis Smiley. I'm delighted to have you listening to this program. It is a blessing, a joy, in fact, a joy unspeakable to have on this special day, the 100th natal day of the brother minister Malcolm X's eldest daughter, Ambassador Attallah Shabazz, in conversation. I said it before, I'll say it again in case you've just tuned in. We are humbled that she accepted our invitation to speak on this day. She could have stayed quiet on this occasion, but she chose to come on this program, and for that I am grateful today and will always be grateful for this conversation one more again, to have a public conversation with Ambassador Attallah Shabazz. Let me just start this segment, if I can, by asking you, and there may not be one answer to this, so stretch out as you will, but I wonder what it is that most troubles you 60 plus years after the assassination of your father, about the way we have misread him. Take it any way you want to take it, the way we have misread as a
Well,
public your father.
well, look, I step back because aren't we grateful that we have some number of people to look up to, look towards in our respective lives? I just wish we did deeper dives into the circumference of what makes a human being, understanding who was the president when that person, not just my dad, any of them, lived. What was that journey? And why do you think it's such a single note? How do you think an evolutionary that all things are in one package? They start my father's life from jail forward. They think that faith hit him or dawned on him in 1964 when he had Umrah and Hajjs in the 50s. Now you have to say, when you realize that, what silenced him between his initial Hajjs and the 1964 one that was public, right? So sometimes we can be muted within the company or by the company we keep. Now, in my life, I was raised by those journeys, thank God. It's how I continued my life. It's what he bequeathed to me. So I think when people say to me, whenever you speak about your father, sister, your smile and the fact that he's so cuddly and all, that ruins it for me. Well, then it's not Malcolm you're admiring. So if we're going to be truthful, if you are mindful about Malcolm, why are we journeying elsewhere when there are children and circumstances right here in the United States that we can tend to make sure are intact or are protected? For me, I won't be at any kind of event. I'm glad they're happening. I'm grateful that they're happening. But I am spending my day with, like 1,200 high schoolers. Generally I'm very quiet on a day like this. Invested, but, not public. And it dawned on me when I was told that the students realized I wasn't going to be joining, that they missed that they were preparing things for me and showing their love for my father. That's who I'm wired to be. That's my grandmother's child. That's my mother and father's child. That's who I am, and that's where it feels most genuine and authentic and what I need, because I'm not just the daughter of Malcolm X, the civil rights person. My dad's gone, and I need to feel a certain way on that day. And a public event or a red carpet or a thing may not be doing it for me. And I hear the prayer from my parents first, not the public.
Yeah. This is something you may or may not choose to comment on, and if you choose not to comment on it, I'm okay. I can move on because you know me. I got more questions. But I raise it because it is a major story. We all saw the lawsuit filed by Ben Crump, this $100 million lawsuit filed by Ben Crump in the case of the assassination of your father. I have not seen publicly your name attached to that. If you care to comment on that, is there a reason why your name has not been attached to that lawsuit?
Well, I didn't know about it. I've learned about it when you all learned about it.
You didn't know about it?
No, not in advance.
Wow.
I heard about it.
Right.
So why I can't jump on something if I don't know the cover letter. And also, if you're respecting Malcolm, you would do it in the order of regard, which is to engage his eldest, who was there. Ben Crump wasn't born then. So how do you know restitution wasn't already made? I mean, there are all kinds of things that took place during that scurrying time in American history, when many people were assassinated, when many decisions were made, when many round tables were had. So if you have to go public to do it, so in my day, we actually knew who to go to on Sunday to take care of that matter. So if you have to do it from a podium, what's that? I don't even know. So it's not a judgment. It's just that I can't come. I didn't know about it. And it says family, right? And so when you say family, the presumption is I would be involved, that other sisters would be involved. But Ben Crump knows better because I've also related to him. And I think I can't come in after the fact. I don't know what they have on paper. It's as simple as that.
Yeah.
It's basic. So I come from the end of the baby boomers, but there's a protocol due process.
Yeah.
Right? So you know, when you wanted to do things with the Kings, as long as Lowry and the whole court around Dr. King after he was gone, you had to engage them. Because I'm actually an endorser. I'm an easy endorser, if I'm clear. I just want to get it right.
Yeah.
I want the narrative to be correct. I need it to be fitting because it's also a dangerous one.
Yeah.
Right? So I should have been informed from the beginning and not a co-signer to something he orchestrated.
Yeah. I'm not even so sure this matters to you, and if it does, you can disabuse me of this notion. And I think if one listens to you, as I certainly have, and the audience has during this conversation, they get that you see the world through your own prism, which I think is a beautiful thing. And you're not again, you can't be gamed, to use your word earlier. I love that word. You can't be gamed. But could you ever have imagined when you were a little girl, running around those pigtails, that your father, all these years later, would be regarded in the way that he is? I mean, I confess, I never thought I'd see the day when your father would be on a U.S. postage stamp. And
Right.
there's so many other things, so many other ways in which he is being honored, not just on this 100th birthday, but, you know, in the years since. And I just, frankly, never saw America coming around in that way. That's me. But how have you read that?
Well, I never waited for America to define anything because, you know, we went through that with King.
That's right.
Well, you know, the states that would and the states that wouldn't. I never waited. So I didn't come. I'm not from the shaping where my approvals or affirmations came from the outside. So I walked in the world knowing the seed of royalty from which we are descendants, and thus have a responsibility to carry humbly, right? So that from people, naysayers, it could be disappointing, but it doesn't move the pendulum for me. So when it comes to my father and others, none of them thought. They were all, black, white, and all. And during that 50s, 60s, from 55 to 75, from Rosa Parks, Emmett Till, Edmund Pettus, and not to mention those that precede them in decades, but also all the way through the civil rights movement. None of them. Ali, when he made those, none of them. Nina Simone, Bob Dylan, those songs, the missions, none of them did it so they could be famous the next day, much less you know their names decades later. They did it based on a conviction. So I was a child amidst a whole lot of folks with conviction, no matter which way you went on it, on that vein. But that's the definer for me. So it is what shapes me today. I come from handshake agreement. You know, but I can't not sign a contract now. But my antenna is sharp because I was around it. Now, could my father not know that people would care later? Because they didn't always show. There was a handful of people around us. But that's why 17, 18, and 19, I was suddenly being found by his fraternity of folks. That included John Henry Clark and Mr. Sutton, where they would engage me direct. That includes Mike Wallace, who found me. That includes my relationship with Ali, who was more like my father's little brother and my big brother. I found all of those persons. So imagine just less than a decade that I actually had all my answers reaffirmed by those persons who today we know their names and we have to study them. But at the time, even when they found me, they were just working folks. And we had our quiet moments.
More of our conversation with Ambassador Attallah Shabazz when we come forward on tap. Delighted to have you with us today on this very special occasion as we celebrate the life and legacy of the brother minister Malcolm X on what would be his 100th birthday. Again, what a delight, what a joy to have been in conversation in this hour with his eldest daughter, the eldest daughter of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz, Ambassador Attallah Shabazz. Let me just ask how your father and your mother prepared you for the work and witness that you've been engaged in all these years after their passing.
I can't say it wasn't conscious because that which they introduced me to early, and my sisters, the schools, the atmospheres, the people, when it's in their control, they were ever present. And my mother, who continued that work, was like an activities guru. So you were never going to be idle. Never going to be idle. I went to the UN school United Nations International School for high school because it was their nuptial agreement. And my father was moved by Eleanor Roosevelt's authoring of the United Nations Declaration for Human Rights when he was 20.
Yeah.
And he didn't know my mother then. So I'm definitely an investment, as are my sisters, as best as they could, even in his absence, of being exposed to the variety, languages, people, cultures, nuances, differences, so that when we talk about equity, it's not a plea. It's an inherent entitlement.
That's
period.
right. That's right.
Period. So if I waited, someone said to me when the movie came out and all those things in the 90s and the early 2000s, I just read about your father. Oh, I just read more. Boy, your father, you must really be proud. Well, if I waited to the year 2000 to have been proud, right? So you say, if you got to invest in young people now, that's where my dedication is. That's my joy all day on his birthday and more. And this is what I would request of people. It's not enough to just have a day's event, but use the 100th year as 100% dedication to making sure all high school students matriculate. Every student that's a senior, make sure they cross that line.
Yes.
Gift them forward with 100% in this 100th birthday year.
Yeah. Here's the exit question. I've got 90 seconds to go, and I'll give it to you. Use the word again. I've been following you this entire hour. Use the word proud. What are you most proud of with regard to being the first child of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz? What makes you proudest to be their baby?
Well, I don't know if there's anything singular, but in how they love me, I love their children, meaning all of my siblings, and how they were fair. My parents were actually very fair. Critical. My mother's more assessing than my dad, but always with the intention of supporting one towards their route to excellence, never dismissive. So that's why even those that took his life, and I knew him, right? I don't have a retaliatory thing. So the vilification is not my fuel. It's assuring the energy used towards the outcome is reached. That's the focus for me. And it doesn't debilitate me. I don't say that I'm not debilitated in fetal positions at times. What comes back is the fuel to just get it done because I'm a witness to seeing it done.
She is her father and her mother's child, and I never get enough of talking to her, whether publicly or in our many private conversations. I always am inspired by her, empowered by her. She challenges me to re-examine the assumptions I hold. She helps expand my inventory of ideas, and who better to have had lead off this program in this first hour today than the eldest child of Malcolm X and Betty Shabazz as we celebrate the 100th natal day of the brother minister Malcolm X. Ambassador Attallah Shabazz, I love you dearly. Thank you for this opportunity to talk to you.
And thank you for including my dad in your day.
You are kind to say that. Thank you for including us in your day.